my channel. So today I am going to be doing the New York Times by the book tag. I saw a bunch of people doing this. Nobody tagged me, but I really wanted to do it because I thought it would be pretty interesting to do, and I love doing tags. So I'm going to leave the original down below, and let's just get right into it. So the first question is, what book is on your nightstand right now? So I have 3 books on my nightstand. So I always keep the books that I'm reading on my nightstand before I go to bed. So the first book is Black Earth, The Holocaust as History and Warning by Timothy Snyder. This is a great book so far, but it is really dense with information, so I'm kind of spreading it out a little bit so I can digest all of it before I keep reading it. It's not really a binge-worthy kind of book. And then I'm reading Long Gone by Alafair Burke. I think that's how you say it, Alafair Burke. This is like a thriller about this woman who gets hired to work in an art gallery, and the guy who hired her, one day she comes into the art gallery to go to work, like 3 days after she started the gallery, and the guy who hired her is dead on the floor and there's no art, and she's trying to figure all this stuff out. It's actually really cool, really good, and I'm about halfway through it, and I bought this at a used book sale and it was signed, so that was pretty cool. And then the final book on my nightstand is Ruby by Cynthia Bond. This is up for the Bailey's Women in Fiction Prize. So I'm trying to read my way through all those books, and this is one that I'm starting with, and it's really good. It kind of talks about, the author is a woman of color, which is awesome, and it talks about, you know, race, and this woman, she goes through this stuff and she moves away from this little town and she comes back, and these people really are like antagonizing her, and it's kind of a story of like resilience. And I know there's a lot of graphic stuff in here, so be wary of that, but so far it's been very good. I'm about 50 pages in. Question 2, what was the last truly great book you read? And if you guys saw my Genreathon wrap up, you would know it is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. I loved this book, and I did not expect to, honestly. This is Virginia Woolf writing an essay about women in fiction, and she says if you want to be a woman who writes fiction, you must have money and a room of one's own. So she talks about kind of the resilience that women had to overcome for so many years. It's just a great story about a strong woman who defied odds, and women who have defied odds. And number 3, if you could meet any writer, dead or alive, who would it be and what would you want to know? So I think I don't really have too many authors that I obsess over, but I think there might be 2 that I would consider. J.K. Rowling, because I feel like I had that book series at the perfect time in my life. I started reading that at the end of middle school, and it's really kind of what catapulted my love of reading, but I was very alone at those times, and I didn't have too many friends, and so for me, getting to read Harry Potter was like an escape, and I think I would want to talk to her about like overcoming her odds, you know, from being homeless to being this one of the most recognized authors in the entire world, you know, and just getting to hear her thoughts on things and how she crafted these characters. She would probably be my main one. But I think I haven't read too much Shakespeare. I've read about 4 of his plays, but I think I would want to meet with him to hear his thoughts on a lot of different things that we discuss now, but also to know exactly who wrote what. You know, there's always been that controversy of, did Shakespeare really write it, or did he have a ghostwriter? And just kind of getting his take on, like, you know, I don't know, just how he viewed people. And you know, people always talk about women and sexuality in the context of his plays, and I'd be very interested to hear what he thought about those. Number 4, what book would people be surprised to find on your shelf? So I'm looking at my shelf right now, and I think the only thing that might surprise people is just the wide range of what I read. I don't have any books on my shelf that are kind of like shockers, but I do have a Clive Cussler book, and he writes books kind of set in a lot of different places and time periods, but especially like he does a lot of things with like submarines, and he's very detail oriented, and I have one of his books. So I think people always view me as somebody who would just read, you know, like chick lit or YA romance, or, you know, which isn't a bad thing, but I read a wide range. Number 5, how do you organize your personal library? Great question. Right now my books are kind of scattered everywhere. I'm trying to do a rainbow order, but it's really not working because almost all the books I have are like black or white or like this strange gray shade. I don't know. And then my library books that I have are at the bottom shelf, and I'm just trying to like get it all in check here, which I can't really do, but yeah, it's kind of just a mess right now, but mostly rainbow order. Number 6, what book have you meant to read but haven't gotten around to yet, and any books you're embarrassed you haven't read? Probably I'm not really embarrassed of anything I haven't read, because I feel like everyone has different reading patterns and we all read different things at different times, but probably something that I wanted to read but I haven't gotten around to is The Diary of Anne Frank. In all my years of reading for classes and things. I've never had to read it, so I don't know why, but I definitely want to, and that's something I'm hoping to get around to. I mean, I'm not really embarrassed of that. The question is, what is a book that you feel like you were supposed to like but didn't, and can you remember the last book that you did not finish? So yes, I have a couple of those books. I talked about a couple of these books in the Unpopular Opinions book tag, but I think maybe like Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. That's pretty much the only one. I mean, Throne of Glass I didn't love, but I actually am starting to change my opinion on the series because I picked up book 2 and I really liked it. So I'm looking at my shelf and I think those are pretty much the only 2 books that really come to mind for that. And then the last book that I didn't finish is actually 11/22/63 by Stephen King, and it's not for the reason that you think. It's not that I didn't like it, it's just that right now I have so much going on and I'm reading so many books and I'm trying to finish books and it's the end of the year for school and I'm just pushing myself that it was so long and it was giving me anxiety of like how many pages I had to finish before I have to turn it back into the library, so I'm gonna put it away, but I definitely plan on rereading it or restarting it over the summer. 8, what kinds of stories are you drawn to and are there any that you steer clear of? Like I said in a couple questions ago, I really read a lot of different stories. I'm really not discriminatory towards anything. I pretty much read a wide range. I mean, I read nonfiction, fiction, and I read subgenres of all of those, you know, so I think the only, if there's not a genre that I steer clear of, except for maybe like erotica. I just don't read any because it doesn't, like, it doesn't do anything for me, but I don't read too many books with vampires, which I also discussed in my Unpopular Opinions book tag. I don't know, just never been interested in it. You know, like the whole wizard world with Harry Potter, I think really interested me, but like vampires just have never been my thing. But yeah, probably just like vampires and like erotica. So if there is a story out there that's vampire erotica, definitely not my thing. Number 9, if you could require the president to read one book, what would it be? Great question. That's a great question. And I think probably Mere Christianity. And I know most people don't talk about religion a lot on book 2, which is totally fine, but I think for me, I read that book at a pivotal point in my high school career, and it is a very philosophical kind of explanation of how C.S. Lewis became a Christian, and it's just a very interesting book. And even if you aren't a Christian, it's a great book to read just to hear his thoughts. And that book is such a cool, interesting, philosophical take on religion and how decisions are made with religion and just, you know, universal morality and dualism and all those kinds of things and all these ideas. I really, really enjoyed that book. It's one of my all-time favorite books, and probably that. I don't really have too many other books that affected my life the way that that one did. Number 10, what do you plan to read next? And I'm looking at my shelf again, and I don't really have a book right this second that I'm thinking I need to read next. I've been in the mood a lot for like murder mysteries and thrillers and things like that, so maybe that, but I'm not sure. I don't think, I've been wanting to read The Devil in the Grove for a long time and I've been putting it off and I don't know why, so maybe that's the next book I'll read. So those were all the questions. I tagged all of you, whoever wants to do it. I think it's always interesting to watch these and to get to hear people's thoughts on things. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you back here later.